Hey, it's Kelly. Welcome back to my channel where we talk all about how to glow from the inside out. And today I want to do a chatty skincare routine. I feel like I haven't done one in a minute. So this morning I just want to walk you through some of the products that I'm using right now, but I want to talk about how K-beauty has changed in the last 13 years. You know, I've been into K-beauty since 2012, and I recently was reminded of a few things that really got me excited about K-beauty back in the day that you just don't see in products anymore these days. And it really got me thinking, how has K-beauty evolved? How has it changed? How is it marketed? What are the aesthetics like, right? What are the values of K-beauty today versus what they were 13 years ago? So if you're ready to see my skincare and just chat about these changes in K-beauty, give the video a big thumbs up and let's get started. Starting off, I wash my face with water just to keep it really gentle for my sensitive skin, and I'm topping my lips with the Clarins Lip Oil in Classic Red. This is the Make Prem Essence Toner, which you know that I absolutely adore because it's so hydrating, and I definitely need to restore the hydration in my skin. Early spring, it's so windy here. I took my dog out this morning and my skin was really feeling it. So let's talk about K-beauty and how it's changed in the last decade. Number one, the packaging focus has changed. There used to be a heavier emphasis on really colorful, very cute, and certainly a lot of lines had a very feminine type of look to them back in 2012, 2013, all the way up to 2015 or so. And then there was this gradual shift over to more minimal looking packaging, more natural types of color palettes, that's greens and browns and whites, and a lot of blue as well. And also definitely a shift away from like those more colorful pinks and purples and oranges even. And I also feel like there has been just worldwide for sure, but definitely we see it reflected in K-beauty, more of a shift to more gender neutral type of packaging. So I'm thinking like Etude House, which rebranded to just Etude a few years ago. I still call it Etude House. And I think that Etude House really reflected what they used to be about. It was very playful. It was very girly. It definitely had like a dollhouse kind of aesthetic to it. And then they rebranded to Etude, which definitely gave it a little bit more of a more minimal, I guess more modern kind of a take on the brand. So this is the Dr. Ceuracle Kombucha Tea Essence. You see that there's two layers here. There is the kombucha tea portion, very hydrating, and then this like milky creamy portion that has a lot of sunflower oil in it. And when you mix it up, it becomes this light but creamy essency toner type of step. And this is a really nice one for this early spring weather. I did share this in my recent empty newbie video that I posted a few weeks ago talking about how I'm searching for those slightly lighter alternatives to the Haru probiotics essence, which is perfect for winter, but I'm trying to experiment and figure out what is my perfect spring routine right now. So you're kind of seeing that in action, but this is an old favorite of mine that I absolutely love, especially for balancing my combo skin. So I'm thinking especially the Etude House Princess Etoinette line, which was actually like a special edition line. I always wanted to get my hands on one of these products. I never did. And it really feels like one of the originators, or probably one of the inspirations for Flower Nose, which is a very popular Chinese makeup brand right now. And they have the most beautiful aesthetics like hello, I have their mirror. It's one of my favorite things in my bathroom, quite honestly, because they have this really gorgeous, very feminine aesthetic, lots of soft pastels and pinks and purples and a very soft like cornflower blue and just really beautiful. And I feel like this line certainly would have been an inspiration for them, but there was a lot of that happening, like I said, like 2012, 2013. I mean, look at this ad that I found for Etude House that features two K-pop bands, FX as well as Shiny. Look at how adorable the packaging is. Look at the colors, look at the vibe. It's so playful, it's so feminine, and it's really fun from the packaging all the way into the product. This is the Dr. Idriss the Depuffer Roll-On Serum. I'm actually just going to be using the roller ball around my eye area. Kind of embarrassed. I had a little bit of a weepy night last night, and I definitely felt my eyes feel a little bit puffy this morning. They're looking better on their own, but this feels incredibly soothing. There are anti-inflammatory ingredients in here that help not only with the redness, but also with the puffiness. And then it's just overall very soothing. So I will use this around the eye area, like I said, when I've had maybe a little bit of a weepy or emotional moment. No shame there. It's okay to feel your feelings, right? But I also use this a lot in allergy season, which is about to start picking. I actually can feel it already, and that might have contributed to me puffing up a little bit more this morning. I use it a lot in allergy season because my eyes do get quite raw, like my actual eyes get very burning and stinging and watery, and all that wateriness really starts to irritate the eye area. So this has been very helpful. I started using this last year. One other trick I want to tell you about that I discovered with this one is that it's actually really good for healing wounds, because all of the anti-inflammatory ingredients in here also are great wound healing ingredients. And so I remember when I first started using this last spring, I went through a lot of breakouts at that point in time, and I would put a little dab of the gel. I wouldn't use a roller ball on like where the pimple was open or popped or whatever, and it really helped it heal up and really took down the redness and inflammation very quickly. So it's very multi-use type of product. You know, thinking about packaging, I'm thinking about lines like Skin Food, which is still around and has that original concept of, you know, food and skincare. A lot of their packaging reflects the food-like ingredients of the skincare. The peach sake line, it's a sake bottle. I don't know if they sell it like this anymore, but you know, this line, while they're still doing that, they have fallen out of as much popularity as they had back in the day, where their packaging really was the draw. Now it's a little bit more of a novelty, quite honestly, but it used to be a much bigger focus and much more popular. And even, you know, Skin Food, the brand, was basically on the brink of bankruptcy back in, I want to say 2019, 2020 era. And so they actually, you know, thankfully they've kind of come back and turned things around, but that just kind of shows you where they went from popularity to they lost a lot of popularity and now they're building back up. But another brand that I think about when it comes to really demonstrating that aesthetic of the 20 teens K-beauty is Tony Moly. You know, the packaging is very, very cute, very kawaii, to use a Japanese term, because I know someone's going to be like, that's not Korean, Kelly. I know. But something that is very cute, very aesthetic, colorful, and just, yeah, really adorable and fun, with like kind of that first emphasis is on that packaging to draw you in. And I think that they still do this a lot with their products, but it is less desirable. I feel like people label these types of packaging like cheap or like not effective. And I think that's more of a product by product basis than anything else. But I just think that the excitement around the color, the packaging, the super feminine, the hyper feminine, if you will. I think that a lot of that has, it's never gone away, but it has fallen out of the mainstream popularity. So this is the Allies of Skin Multi-Peptides and GF Advanced Lifting Serum. And as the name suggests, it is a peptide serum that is focused on well-aging, skin firming, collagen stimulation. Let me show you the texture. It's quite nice. It has this really fantastic, kind of like a runny, but still kind of medium to light gel texture. It actually feels pretty hydrating, but I really am excited just about the texture. Like I was saying, I'm trying to kind of figure out my spring balance right now. So this feels like it's going to be one of my staples for the spring. I've been really favoring a lot of creamy serums and essences lately, and I know that it's time to start shifting focus away from that. So I'm sorry that I can't tell you too much more about it, because I actually just started using this 2 days ago. So far so good. I do, like I said, I do really appreciate the texture. The formula definitely is promising. I will keep you updated. You know I always do. But yeah, I have high hopes for this one, so we will see. You know, I do think that the aesthetic from packaging first has really kind of shifted more into like the ingredients first now. And I think that that just comes with more people being really plugged into skincare these days. You know, I would say like, It was pretty rare. Now, back in the day, in the 20 teens, right, I definitely was researching my skincare products, looking at blogs and trying to figure out what ingredients were, but that was definitely not the norm back in the day. And there was not as many resources that were easy to access as there is today. So that was definitely not something that people were into or doing or talking about. And so I think that's why, you know, the marketing would lead with color, with packaging, with that kind of like aesthetic story. And now it has shifted into ingredients, formula, actives, right? What is it targeting on your skin? This type of marketing really reflects the fact that people are plugging more into skincare, not just the content and being more interested in building skincare routines, but some of the people who are even getting a little bit more geeky. And now we have a lot of science communicators in the skincare space also helping to educate us about ingredient marketing and deceptive tactics, right? But also about the ingredients that do work. And so marketing has, you know, really globally for skincare, right, has shifted away from aesthetic first. Aesthetics are important. Brand identity and stories are still very important, but they are really leading off with that ingredient and formula information first and foremost. And so I think that is being reflected in the K-beauty that we're seeing today. So this is the VT Reedle Shot Lifting Eye Cream. I am going to top off where I put the Dr. Idriss Depuffing Serum. I'm going to top that off with some cream just because it is still an area that feels a little bit dry for me. And I'm really trying to push down on this. I am getting towards the very bottom of this cream. So I am using the applicator today to dot it. And it actually, you can't really tell, but it actually, this bit here, when you hold this and then press this to your skin, it actually starts to vibrate. So there's definitely still some packaging innovation happening in K-beauty, but you'll notice that it has a very sleek, very genderless type of packaging that's going to appeal to a lot of different folks. So let's talk about ingredients, because that's kind of my second point that I wanted to talk about. And actually what inspired me to talk about this in a video, because I don't remember what, I was watching some like old cooking show or something, or like a travel food show, and they were talking about like bird's nest soup. I think it was maybe in Japan. I don't know. But anyways, they're talking about bird's nest soup. And I was like, oh, bird's nest. I remember using like sheet masks with bird's nest from like K-beauty brands like SNP. And I definitely believe My Beauty Diary, which is a T-beauty brand, had a bird's nest mask. Anyways, it got me thinking about how you don't really see those types of ingredients in K-beauty as much as you used to. You know, when I was first getting into K-beauty, there was definitely like a focus on animal, based ingredients. I mean, we all know about snail, right? That was definitely popular back in the early 20 teens for sure. There was a lot more brands than just Cosrx. Actually, Cosrx, I don't even think was the first brand that was really promoting the snail essences. But that was definitely a much bigger boom in like the 2012, 2013 era. And then there was also bee venom was a big one, definitely Benton snail bee, combine those two ingredients, but also donkey milk cream was a big one. I remember being very excited about donkey's milk because it's incredibly moisturizing. But then we also have ingredients like horse oil, propolis, which is still very popular, pig's collagen, bird's nest, as I mentioned earlier. These are all ingredients that are derived from some type of animal source. And while we definitely do still see, as I said, propolis and definitely snail still being popular, we don't really see these ingredients going viral. We don't really see them hitting the Western market through K-beauty channels quite as much, because there has been a huge shift towards vegan and cruelty-free, right? And that just reflects the changing values globally for the consumer, right? But I think it also reflects a changing value within Korea as well. I think there's quite a few different influences for why this has occurred, but that's probably one of the biggest shifts that I've noticed. One other thing that you'll notice, and I think that this ties into the packaging aspect as well, is a lot of the marketing has moved from very playful, very colorful, very, hyper feminine, as I mentioned before, to something that reflects more nature, softness, minimalism. And that definitely was happening around the rise of eco-friendly marketing, greenwashing, right? And just more of an interest in being more sustainable and more of an interest in taking care of the planet around the very late 2010s. And we see that carrying forward even to today. You see this marketing from Etude House and from Innisfree around the same time, both using K-pop stars to really get across their brand aesthetic. But you see how things start to change. It's a really great example between the two styles and where K-beauty was and where it has shifted to. So this is Stratia Lipid Gold, and this is Cocokind Chia Facial Oil. So, I do like to do 1 pump of Stratia Lipid Gold, and I was doing 2 pumps back in the winter, but it's time to cut back a little bit. So I do 1 pump of Lipid Gold, and then I just started using the Cocokind Chia Seed Oil maybe about a week ago or so, and I am testing this as a potential replacement for the ordinary chia seed oil, which I have loved in springs past, right? But that oil has been discontinued. So I'm going to do about 3 drops and then mix everything on the back of my hand and apply, and this helps keep my skin barrier strong. As I mentioned, the wind has been testing it, and this is what helps keep it healthy, strong, and hydrated. So let's talk about the Western influence on K-beauty, because that's definitely had a huge impact on the K-beauty that we know and love today. It definitely is an influence. When I first got into K-beauty, it was a very niche thing to be into, and it was actually very hard to be into it because it was not like it is now where, channels like mine tell you all about the latest K-beauty products and what's happening and what's out there and, what's good and what's not. There were a handful of blogs that were in English, right, that would talk about the K-beauty products that they were bringing in from South Korea or that they were able to find on sites like Yes Style. Blogs really made it happen. I have to say, shout out to all the old school bloggers. You really made this happen. But this was kind of just that era pre-skincare influencer, right? And so as we started to move further into the skincare influencer, era, right? And I'm thinking like 2018, 2019, kind of starting around there when it started to get really big, and more people started to notice, and more people were bringing K-beauty into their routines and then sharing them in platforms that are easier to consume than blogs, right? YouTube videos, Instagram posts, right? TikTok wasn't quite a thing quite at that point in time just yet. But of course now TikTok has hyper exploded it all over again. But because the Western market is so big, it's really important to understand that South Korea is, while it is a powerhouse country, it is a small country compared to the outsized influence that it has in multiple industries, right? Including skincare and beauty. I think I looked it up once and it was a little bit over the population of California or Texas in the United States. It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that it is so small. So there are only so many consumers in South Korea itself. So it's an incredibly competitive market if you were to just sell domestically as a K-beauty brand. That's why it has been such an important push and so economically advantageous for K-beauty brands to export, to market directly to a Western consumer. Because while there is still definitely a lot of competition in the West, it's just a bigger, slightly more even playing field than it is in South Korea. People just don't really grasp this. So we get a lot of content talking about, what real Korean girls are using in South Korea, because this is real K-beauty, not that fake Western K-beauty that isn't even sold in South Korean stores. That doesn't make it not Korean. You have to understand the economics of the country, even just a little bit, right? And I'm just scratching the surface here, but you have to understand the economics of the industry as well as the country that you're speaking about. It does make for some compelling short content, like a little quick TikTok or a YouTube short where you're like, this is what they're actually selling in Korea. That's just part of the story though. That doesn't actually mean that it's fake K-beauty. whatever, that's a whole different topic, right? But that doesn't make the brand fake. It doesn't make it less worthy or less good or less effective for your skin. And so I've always been very skeptical of that type of language and marketing in content that really started to get popular a couple of years ago. There's a really beautiful influence and mixing of Western skincare principles and K-beauty skincare principles. You know, back in 2010, 2013, right? This kind of teen era that I've been talking about a lot, very little retinol. Quite honestly, very little acids like AHAs and BHAs, a few, and I will point out some of the originators of these types of formulas, especially I'm thinking Cosrx. Perfect case example of a K-beauty brand that could not make it domestically in South Korea, but found their popularity and found their customer base outside of Korea back in the 20-teens, right? Now they're in South Korea. Now Korean, people are using Cosrx because they made it outside, and now they have that recognition that they can actually have a market share in their own country. So they were a brand that was actually one of the first that I know of that was using AHAs and BHAs in their products, but very little emphasis on chemical exfoliation, hardly any emphasis on retinol. Did it exist? Yes, we can always say there was one or two. Iope was definitely one of the brands, but it just was not a core principal ingredient in K-beauty. The emphasis has always been gentle. The emphasis has always been on hydration and moisture prevention, sun protection, and very little on aggressive ingredients, exfoliation, acids, retinols, all of that, right? Vitamin C's. And that may be due, again, I'm saying, like, you have to understand the country that you're talking about instead of just speaking from your own perspective. I believe that dermatology is so much more accessible in South Korea. It's very affordable. There are a lot of options. You're not waiting for months on end just to get an appointment, and then you can actually afford the prescription cream or the different products that they're recommending for your skin problems. You can actually afford them, and so I think that has been the case. It's just more accessible to get that type of care in South Korea. So I think a lot of those types of ingredients have been reserved for prescription-based skincare products, where in the US, we know that healthcare is a little bit trickier to access, right? And you do have to wait a long time to get into the doctor if you can even afford to go to a dermatologist, right? And then if your insurance covers blah, blah, blah. So that there's an incentive there to fit the consumer base to have a lot more active ingredients accessible over the counter, right? So those are the differences. And this is just my kind of point of view, right? There's certainly going to be a lot more nuances involved in it, but it's important to understand that type of value and why K-beauty has changed so much, why those ingredients weren't as available, why they started to become more available, and why they're now a staple. It is a Western influence. Topping everything off with the Cerave Moisturizing Cream. That feels so good. I was mixing in a heavier cream in some of my videos during the winter, and I have been backing off of that. I always like to leave it open for my nighttime routine because, it's a very nice restorative period of time, your nighttime skincare routine when you're sleeping. So sometimes a little bit more demand for moisture makes sense, but it's really starting to warm up, which is great, and get a lot more mild. And so I'm kind of backing off of those heavier layers. I am going to finish off with some sunscreen. Do you want to guess which one it is? It's always the same one. It is the Skin 1004 Hyalu-Cica Water Fit Sun Serum. So I wanted to use this one. It is almost empty. I have been using the bigger 100 milliliter tube, which I really love because it's twice the size, right? And it's just like a nice little squeeze bottle instead of the airless pump. But I found this. I guess I thought I emptied it, but I didn't. There's still a little bit of product in here. I found it here on my vanity. It's this way. And I was like, oh shoot, I forgot to use this up. So I want to just use this up as the sun is starting to come back. And I've got my eye on some new sunscreens. So the airless pump towards the end just is not as, it's not as good. But one trick for you, if you are getting to the end with any airless pump and it's not working, turn it upside down and then pump it. You actually start to prime the pump, and then you get a lot more product out. And there's just something so good about this. It's just, really light. It's really breathable. It really just suits my skin. It always feels very comfortable. Thanks for joining me. You know, that is in my, experience, how K-beauty has changed and evolved over the so many years, over a decade plus that I have loved K-beauty. It has changed quite a bit, but it really does still have my heart. And if you love the video, don't forget to hit subscribe, especially if you love chatty skincare routines like this one. If you love K-beauty, come join our skincare community and turn on notifications so you're never out of the loop. I'm very active here on YouTube every single week. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I love you so, so much. I hope you keep shining your light out there, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.